Are you ready to land a TEDx talk in 2025 and make your mark? Well, if you are, join my Land and Deliver Bootcamp. It's a 6-week high-energy program designed to help you craft your TEDx idea, perfect your pitch, and land the gig. With personalized coaching, live calls, and the support of a community of like-minded speakers, you're going to get the tools and feedback you need to succeed. Plus, you'll receive lifetime access to my step-by-step course for landing a TEDx talk. Don't wait. 2025 is your year to step onto the TEDx stage. And you can sign up now at helenpackham.com/land-and-deliver-bootcamp. I'll see you there. Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word. I delivered a signature keynote bootcamp a few months ago, and that was a group program that I held with a small group of people to help them develop a keynote. And it was a really interesting journey. I hadn't done it in this format before, and it was really wonderful to support this small group of women through the journey of creating a keynote, some of which had not created a keynote before. And what it gave me was a really good sense check on where people are when they do something like this, because it's a really courageous thing to do, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, to do things you haven't done before. And when you're taking yourself from maybe being used to delivering presentations to then delivering a keynote, there are big changes at play. And what I learned through the process of helping my clients to create their keynote was that the smaller steps along the way are really, really important. And one of those is the use of slides. Now, no matter who you are or what you're doing, if you're delivering information to a group of people, it's very important to consider how you're using slides. Now, there are many different ways that you can use slides, and in some talks, no slides is appropriate. So, for example, in a TED talk, using no slides at all can be really effective because a TED talk is short. It's like a minimum of around 12 minutes long, a maximum of 18 minutes long. It's minimal interaction with the audience. And so it's all about the ideas. It's all about the words. Then when you have a presentation, you're moving into like presentation, workshop, lunch and learn territory. The need for slides is there because you are transferring learning to an individual. So if you're delivering a presentation, you're going to be sharing information. You're going to be imparting some type of knowledge for feedback or action. And so it needs a certain level of information. Now, I have spoken before about the fact that you can actually provide other resources to people, so you don't have to put all the information on your slides. However, providing information that anchors what you're talking about in a really visually appealing way is still valid in a presentation. But I'm not talking about presentations today. I'm talking about delivering a talk. Now, you could call this a signature talk. You could call this a keynote talk, but it's a talk that takes your ideas to another level. You might be delivering this signature keynote talk to an audience in the corporate world. So they're going to be managers, maybe senior leaders, employees. And it's a significant talk around a particular area of your expertise. It's going to be around 35, 40, 45 minutes long with Q&A. So usually keynotes have an hour slot. So you might be talking for a maximum of 45 minutes and then have 15 minutes for questions is a good kind of time frame. So therefore the talk is longer, it's more interactive, and it requires enhancement to anchor what you're talking about, to make it memorable, as well as using things like storytelling, which I've shared in other episodes, the slides play a really key role. And so in this episode, I'm going to give you the slide 101. I'm going to share with you how to use slides to enhance your talk without relying on them as a crutch, because this is one of the biggest pitfalls I see, that people cram their slides full of information so they can remember what comes next. And that is a huge pitfall, because when you do that and you rely on slides, you're going to be glancing at the slides, you're going to be reading from the slides, and you've lost half your audience in doing that. The way that I'm going to share with you, and I've already talked about how to memorize your talk, but I'm going to retouch on this because it's an important way of increasing your confidence. So one client in particular I helped last year, she had a real sticking point towards the end of our work together. And it was when I helped her think about the slides that she wanted that her confidence really grew, because she was using them as an anchor in a big chunk way to guide her talk, to enhance her talk, rather than replace or use a script or rely on them as a crutch. So I really want to help you as a speaker to create impactful slides that enhance your talk and that build your confidence and maintain your flow. So I'm also going to talk about the difference between keynotes and presentations. And I'm going to use examples of my own keynote and other keynotes as I walk through. Now, of course, this is audio, so I am going to be descriptive, but hopefully the information I share with you can then help you go and do this for yourself. So why do we use slides? Well, we use slides to enhance, not replace. And that's a really good thing to remember. Enhance, not replace, because slides amplify your message and they provide visual cues, but they should never serve as a script. I can't emphasize this enough. It is so obvious when someone uses slides as a script or a crutch for their talk, because you can feel the lack of confidence there. You can feel the reliance on the slides to keep the talk going, and we don't want that. In your practice, you can use slides, and we'll talk about this more in a minute. You can use slides to punctuate your practice. So they act as anchors and visual cues for the next part of the talk. However, they don't have scripts on them. They are there to enhance what you are doing. So I'm going to give you some examples, but for example, I'm going to give you one from my own keynote, which is called Breaking the Blocks That Hold Us Back. It's a mindset talk. And I start by using an image of a child's set of bricks. And that is my opening image. And it's colourful blocks all stacked up. And the reason why I share that image, because my opening story talks about when I was a child and when my daughter was younger, that she used to keep stacking those bricks. And they used to fall down and she'd stack them again. And they'd fall down and she'd stack them again. And this opening story is the gateway to the core message of the talk, which really anchors on the fact that as children, we are relentless. We don't give up because we learn to walk, we learn to talk, we learn to stack, we learn to build. But as we get older, these blocks get in our way. And we stop trying to stack and stack and stack again. And then we lose our confidence. And so this image of these colourful children's building blocks is the gateway to the talk. It's the opening story, and that is the opening image. And that is just an example of how I use those sorts of images in my talks. And as I say, it really does help to build confidence, because a well-designed deck of slides really does act as a memory anchor. And I've helped many clients. I've actually been in the room with them practicing their talk over and over and over. And the more we do that, the more they're anchoring to the images. They're remembering what's coming next. They're not reliant on the slides. They're using them to enhance what they're talking about. It really does help you to deliver naturally and avoid the gaps in memory where you think, I've forgotten my next line of my script. Also, it's delivered more naturally because each time you practice, you're going to say it a bit differently, but that's okay. It's coming from a different part of your brain rather than a memorized slide. So what's the difference between keynotes and presentation slides? Well, having developed and created both for many, 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 many years, my background is in leadership development. I used to train hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leaders on programs every single day, and I had to create the slides. And so presentation slides are anything from a presentation, a briefing, or workshop, a lunch and learn, something like that. They are more detailed and more interactive, and they support the workshops or the training or the information that you're delivering. So there is more text in a presentation, but that text is only there for purpose and for people to remember key points. As I said, other resources can be provided so you don't have to pack all the information on a presentation slide. A lunch and learn or a workshop is going to have interaction. So there might be, for example, when you are facilitating a breakout, you have the breakout exercise and you have the instructions for the breakout exercise on the slide so that when people go into their breakout rooms, they can take that information with them, whether you're delivering this online or in person. And so every slide still has a purpose, but there's going to be also more structured layouts to guide your discussion, to guide the learning, to guide the information you're sharing. But still, it will be image rich and text minimal because the human brain is not designed to take in loads and loads and loads of information in one go and remember it. So you want to use the slides to enhance what you're talking about in an impactful way. But in a presentation, that will be more detailed. It will be more interactive than a keynote. So let's talk about the keynote. A keynote or a talk of some type that is a signature talk that is focused on your area of expertise and a big problem you're solving within the next 18 to 24 months. That could be delivered at industry events. It could be delivered in corporate environments. It could be delivered in community groups. It could be delivered online and in person. This is your keynote talk, and a difference between a presentation and a keynote is very much storytelling focused. A presentation is as well, but really storytelling focused, visually bold, and emotionally engaging. We really want to challenge, disturb thought. You want to inspire and kickstart motivation. You want to incite action and get people to think or do or feel something differently than when they first walked in that room. So therefore, the slides are going to have minimal text with imagery that connects to the message. And the really fun thing about this is when you are creating your slides, you can get really creative with how you want to portray the message you're sharing on the slide in a really visually appealing way. And I'm going to give some examples right now. So let's use my keynote example of breaking the blocks that hold us back, which is, as I said, is a mindset talk. And I use various solutions in this talk to problems that lots of people face in the workplace. It was a keynote for the workplace. And as I said, my title slide was my opening story, which I call the Big Bang Opening. And this was these building blocks. And I shared the image and I told the story about my daughter and myself, and the audience really connected with that. And then I asked them a question and they engaged with me after doing that. Now, sharing that type of story is a good starting story. It is also a big bang because it's out of context. And I've just got one big, bold image behind me as I'm telling that story. And as we know, in terms of memory retention, people are more likely to retain something if there's a real visual anchor as well as the story itself. I also talk about my story sort of throughout this keynote. I pepper the keynote with small stories from my journey. And in one area of the talk, which is towards the beginning, I have a slide with chains around a foot. And it's like my foot. And what this symbolizes is my limitations that I faced when I ran away from my corporate career around imposter syndrome and how that affected my confidence. It really did. I became very anxious of being in board meetings. I threw up before them. I was really holding myself back with my mindset because I didn't feel I believed that I belonged there. I'd come back from maternity leave. Everybody I felt had zoomed ahead. I was with all men in these boardrooms, and the lack of confidence was crushing. And so I used that particular symbol of my foot with that round it. You could use other types of imagery to share that type of feeling of imposter syndrome, of limitations, of being held back, of being, those sorts of things. And that was one of the next slides. Then I'd go on to talk about what this really is about. So I'm actually following a Keynote structure I've shared in this podcast before. So you can go back and check out that Keynote structure. It's a very tried and tested Keynote structure, because what we talk about is what's really going on. So we talked about the big problem, and then we talk about the real problem. And in this area, I have an image of a gremlin, and it's like a toy gremlin, but it's really colourful. And I explain that's what it can feel like, a gremlin on your shoulder, telling you you're not good enough, to holding you back from taking action, making you feel small in public situations, stopping you from speaking up. So I tell the story around that and what that looks like. And then I move on to a slide which has a Superman and Superwoman on the slide. And this is to explain that actually this is your protector. What's really going on is you have a protector inside you. And this image represents it as a protective mechanism. So it's a different way of looking at your limiting mindset beliefs and actually having compassion towards your inner protector, just trying to protect you from perceived threat. And then I move on to more detail around these blocks, and I share different images to describe the blocks. So one is around career success, and I share this sort of linear path because one of the blocks is a lot of people feel like the only way is up with their careers. And the solution that I share with the image around that is the image of a bear hunt, from the famous children's book, because my solution is redefine your path. And in the bear hunt, they go around it, they go under it, they go through it. So my solution there is redefine what your career path looks like. And I go through and talk about problems and solutions with real image-rich things. So, for example, there's one slide where I'm talking about individuality and looking at the segments of you, and it's a big orange with the segments. So as you can see here from the examples I'm giving, is that the slide supports the message. The slide doesn't explain the message. You don't read off the slide to share the message. The slide is there to support the message or story you're delivering to enhance what you're saying. Now, in some cases, having large text on the slide is good. If you've got like a statistic, if you've got a quote, if you've got a phrase or a saying or a statement, having that big on the slide is really good. Maybe with a faded image behind it, sometimes just on its own. And that can really help. So, for example, sometimes with a big bang close, which is ending your talk with a real bang that links it all together, that makes people have a final thought. And in this particular example, I explain that success isn't final, failure isn't fatal, it's the courage to continue that counts. That's my big bang ending. And I literally had that with a powerful background image for an emotional close. And I had that big and bold on the slide so people could remember that. So how this helped is that visuals served as a memory trigger for each story or chunk of the talk, and the slides reinforced the message without distracting from the storytelling or enabling me to rely on the slides as a prompt. I'm going to give you another example of a well-being talk, and I'm going to give just a few examples so you can start to think about what this might look like for you. And again, when we are thinking about this, we're thinking about it in relation to the structure that I use for a signature keynote talk. If If you want more information about that or my signature keynote bootcamp, get in touch, hello@helenpackham.com. But say if you were talking about finding more rest in your life, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is actually one of my clients, and she's going to be coming on the podcast very shortly. So we're going to be going into this in a lot more detail. But think about a talk around recovery, and you want to emotionally connect your audience to the concept of recovery. Well, she has opened with a serene beach scene, and it's a lovely picture of a beach in a tropical paradise. We've got the sand, and it's the point of view of the person sitting in the hammock. And she opens with actually an exercise and a story, which really connects the audience to that image, puts them in a good place, puts them in a calm, rested place. And then she moves from there. She then goes on to talk about the problem. And this is a corporate audience talk, and so there are statistics in this part. And so what she did was she put some statistics in terms of lost productivity from the Mental Health Foundation. Always cite your sources when it comes to statistics. So a big, and there's 5 billion in this case, a big 5 billion on the slide is focusing on, well, what's really going on here? What's the big problem? Then we move to the real problem, we bring it down. And what she did was she gave some fantastic visuals around what fight or flight looks like. And they were more abstract in terms of, normally you might have like a lion or, something else to represent fight. She had a really great example of a dog barking. And so it's about thinking, how do I represent fight or flight? How do I represent the stories I'm telling around the problems we're facing to do with our stress responses? And she gave some really good stories around there. And also she used case study stories with clients and used AI generated images based on the prompts of that particular person and where they were when they were experiencing the problem. Adobe Firefly is very good for this. And also, just to let you know, Pixabay is good for the other images. But if you want an AI generated image, Adobe Firefly is very good. DALL-E on ChatGPT is a little bit limited. It needs work. So I would definitely use, Midjourney is high end. Adobe Firefly is fantastic. You put in the detailed prompts of what you want and it comes up with it. And so that's where AI comes in really handy when you're sharing case study stories and you don't want to use pictures of your clients. So for her solutions, she had some formulas, and those formulas were ones that she has created that are solutions for her clients, for the people that she's giving the talk to. In particular, in this particular talk, there were lots of images around the ideal work environment and what that looks like, and how you can put digital boundaries in place and how you can create rituals. So in this solution part of the talk, these sorts of images were used to embed the solutions that people can adopt. So the formula was one, and she actually put the formula on the slide. Then we've got images representing recovery and rituals and the ideal work environment, boundaries, curfews, flexibility, all of those sorts of things. And then ending on a big bang close, which was a statement around the future and hope for the future. So in summary, the key design principles for memorable slides are that you use images to evoke emotion and enhance storytelling, that you avoid clutter, so minimal text and very focused points. It all has to have a purpose. Chunking for memory. So you can design slides to align with sections of your talk using the visuals as prompts, but not as a crutch. So you could memorize your talk by putting slides together and then speaking it out loud, but don't rely on the slides to read from. You can also use tools like ChatGPT to brainstorm slide ideas and image prompts. This is brilliant because if you're not feeling very creative and you think, God, I want to come up with a really good example of what fight or flight might look like, ask ChatGPT and then put that prompt into Adobe Firefly or Pixabay and it can get that image for you. So if you want to practice a talk and you want to develop the talk's flow first, I think that's a good thing to do. But then you can build the slides after you have got the flow of the talk to support each section. And you can practice delivering your talk with the slides as cues to ensure really natural delivery. As I say, if you're reciting a script, which is very difficult to do, to remember all those lines, especially at like a keynote talk, then the chances of tripping up are much higher. And it sounds robotic. If you're memorizing it this way, it's going to come out differently every time, which is okay. And it's much more natural in delivery. So this is the difference between a keynote and a presentation. And I do feel there is real power in using visuals to enhance your talk. It also does build your confidence and it connects you with the audience. And ultimately, it helps them remember you, your message, and your story. So I'd love to hear what this is like for you, where you are in this. Have you got something coming up and you're scared about what slides to use? Please do reach out, hello@helenpackham.com, and let me know. And I look forward to speaking with you next time. Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.